Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Twisted Threes. We're going to change up the format a little bit on this show. And leave your comments down below. If you like the channel, please subscribe, hit that notification bell. And we're going to turn this into a story format. There's so many channels out there that just read stories. I don't want to do that. So today we're going to talk about the Pigdons. Canada's worst serial killers. That's right. Canada's worst serial killers. Robert Pigdon killed over 49 women before he was ultimately caught and charged in 2003 when the police executed a search warrant. Now, that search warrant was for weapons, and they were looking for illegal firearms. So Robert Pigdon was arrested and charged for possession of illegal firearms. So was his brother. Both of them were released, but they were put under surveillance. Now, to give you a sense of what the farm looked like, it was nasty, dirty. Robert looked like he never bathed in months. The farm just was, it was a pig farm. But what they did is they applied for a registration for a non-profit organization called the Piggy Palace Good Time Society. It was a non-profit organization, and it was designed to organize and coordinate managed operation special events, functions, and dances. And they converted their slaughterhouse into a studio-type place that they would hold these dances. Well, that was all well and good. But Hiscock, one of the workers, started to notice that when women would visit the farm, they'd never return. And so when they issued or executed that search warrant for the illegal weapons, they found women's property. And so that led police to get another search warrant and join forces with the BC Missing Women's Investigations. And what they found was literally horrifying. They found and charged Robert Pigdon with 27 counts of murder. Now, the horrifying thing is that it was rumored that when he would chop up the bodies, which he was pretty proficient of, he would chop the bodies up, and it was rumored that he mixed it in with some of the animal slaughterings that he did that he sent to the meat market. And so there was warnings about that. He fed a lot of these victims to pigs that he had on the farm. They were even going to get soil samples to see if they could find the other women that he admitted to killing. He admitted to killing 49 women, but not to police. He admitted killing the other women to a police informant or an undercover cop that was in his cell with him. And the reason he thinks that he got caught was that he just wanted to kill one more. If he would have just left it at 49 women, which matter of fact was a lie, because they weren't there on the initial search warrant for the women. They were there for illegal firearms. And what they dug up on that property was horrifying. And to give you a sense of the property, even workers like Hiscock that worked there said the property was creepy and disheveled. I guess the question remains, how many did he really kill? According to him, 49. Pedro Alonso Lopez born October 8th, 1948, was Colombia's worst serial killer and child killer. He was sentenced to killing 110 girls who he claimed to rape and kill, even more than 300 across Colombia and Peru and Ecuador. He was interviewed by a guy named Ron Ladner, a longtime freelance journalist, who published his interview in the Chicago Tribune on Sunday, the 13th, July 1980. According to Ladner's story, Lopez became known as the Monster of Andes in 1980 when he led police to 53 graves in Ecuador. His victims were girls 12 years of age and younger. In 1983, he was found guilty of murder of 110 in Ecuador. He further confessed to an additional 240 murders in Peru and Colombia. Lopez claimed that during his incarceration for car theft, he was brutally gang raped and subsequently killed his attackers while still in prison. After he was released from prison from the car theft, he moved to Peru, and Lopez claimed that by 1978 he had killed over 100 girls before being caught and captured by members of an indigenous tribe. His captors was going to kill him and execute him, but a Christian missionary from the U.S. intervened and persuaded them to turn him over to police. But what did the police do? They released him. Lopez said that he had subsequently returned to Colombia and later moved to Ecuador during this period, and he claimed he had killed about 3 girls a week. And he's quoted as saying, "I like the girls in Ecuador. They're more gentle and trusting, more innocent." Now, Lopez was arrested when an attempt to abduct a young girl failed, and he was trapped. The Associated Press reported that he was arrested in March 1980 and that he confessed to killing 103 girls, including 53 whose bodies had been found. In January 1981, he was convicted on 3 murders and had confessed to 300 sexual assaults and strangulations. The police only believed his confessions when a flash flood uncovered a mass grave containing many of his victims. Now, according to the BBC, Lopez was arrested in 1980, but he was, get this, released by the government of Ecuador in 1998. In an interview from prison, Lopez described himself as a man of the century. Horrifying that this man could be released on good behavior. And that's exactly what happened. An A&E biography documentary reported that he was released from Ecuadorian prison on the 31st of August 1994, then rearrested as an illegal immigrant and handed over to Colombian authorities, where he was then charged with a 20-year-old murder. And he was declared insane and sentenced to a psychological wing of the Bogotá Hospital in 1998. However, he was declared sane and released on a $50 bail, subject to certain conditions. The same documentary said that Interpol released an advisory for his rearrest by Colombian authorities over a fresh murder in 2002, and he is currently at large and wanted by the police. Well, the segment wouldn't be complete without adding one serial killer from the United States by the name of Samuel Little, born June 7, 1940, and died December 30th, 2020. Samuel Little was an American serial killer who was convicted in 2012 for the murders of 3 women in California between 1987 and 1989, as well as in 2018 for the murders of 1 woman in Texas in 1994. He claimed to have killed as many as 93 women, and investigators have linked him to over 60 murders, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation has confirmed Little's involvement in at least 60 murders, which is the largest number of proven cases for any serial killer in the United States history. He allegedly murdered women across 19 states over a third of a century, ending around 2005. The number of murders he confessed to, if confirmed, would make him the most prolific serial killer in the United States history, according to Ector County, Texas District Attorney Bob Bland. In 1961, Little was sentenced to 3 years in prison for breaking into a furniture store in Lorain, Ohio. He was released in 1964, but by the time 1975 rolled around, he had been arrested 26 times in 11 states for crimes including theft, assault, attempted rape, fraud, and attacks on the government officials. In 1982, Little was arrested in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and charged with the murder of 22-year-old Melinda Rose LaPree, who had gone missing in September of that year, but a grand jury declined to indict him for the murders. However, while under investigation, Little was transferred to Florida to be brought on trial for the murder of 26-year-old Patricia Ann Mount, whose body was found on September 1982. And prosecutors' witnesses identified Little in court as a person who spent time with Mont the night before her disappearance. But due to mistrust of the witnesses' testimony, Little was acquitted in January of 1984. Little moved to California, where he stayed in the vicinity of San Diego. But on October 1984, he was arrested for kidnapping, beating, and strangling a 22-year-old Laura Boros, who survived. And 1 month later, he was found by police in the backseat of a car with an unconscious woman, also beaten and strangled, in the same location as the attempted murder of Boros. Little served 2.5 years in prison for both crimes, but upon February of 1987, he immediately moved to California, Los Angeles, California, and committed 10 more murders. Little was arrested on September 5th, 2012 at a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky, and extradited to California to face narcotics charges after authorities did a DNA test to establish that he was involved in the murders of Carol Eileen Elford, killed on July 13, 1987, Apadocta, killed on September 3, 1987, and Audrey Nelson Everett, who was killed on August 14, 1989. Now, all three of these women were killed and later found on the streets of Los Angeles. He was extradited to Los Angeles, where he was charged on January 7, 2013. A few months later, the police said that Little was being investigated for the involvement of 36 committed murders in 1980s, which until then had been undisclosed. In connection with the new circumstances in Mississippi, the LaPree murder case was reopened. In total, Little was tested for involvement in 93 of the women committed in the United States. Murders committed. He would later confess. On November 9th, 2018, Little confessed to 1996 fatal strangulation of Melissa Thompson and Denise Brothers Odessa in Texas after being confessed the crimes to a Texas Ranger in May 2018. Little pled guilty to the murders of brothers on December 13th and received another life sentence. The Ector County District Attorney of Wise County, Texas Sheriff's Office announced on November 13th that Little had confessed to a dozen murders and may have committed more than 90 in 14 states between the years of 1970 and 2005. Guys, I hope you like the stories. If you do, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to the channel. And thank you all for listening.